Day of Remembrance is a yearly event observed on February 19th to remind us of Executive Order 9066, which sent all the Japanese Americans to internment camps in the US. It's really important to carry on this tradition and its message because of how much of an impact it made on our community and us as people.
Day of Remembrance is the day that we all take the time to honor those who have been interned.
It's important that people participate in events such as DOOR because I feel that not only does it really commend those people that were interned, but also I think it's important because it really gives us a sense of recognizing that people were wronged in the past and in history, and I think it's important that we remember these things so that different racial groups don't get discriminated today.
So DOOR is important because it's a reminder for people today that sometimes wrongs can be sanctioned, meaning that sometimes a law can be the wrong, and we as individuals have to recognize that being discriminated and having laws that discriminate against certain kinds of people is wrong. And I think that it's important that we keep reminding people that it still happens today. And me, myself, I don't have relatives that went through internment necessarily, but when I learned about it, it taught me about how important it is to, as a community, inform people that this happens like in history and it happens today even. And yeah, that's why I think this event is really important.
DOOR is important because it remembers the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. My grandparents were both in Japan at the time and were not interned, but that doesn't take away the memories or history behind it. So much has changed and lives were changed
The
forever.
Day of Remembrance is a day that we take the time to pay respects and honor those who were interned in the camps during World War II. And I think it's really important for us as a younger generation to take part in events such as Day of Remembrance to gain that knowledge and learn about that history and our culture that our ancestors went through. I think for me personally, I never really got to talk to my grandparents about what they went through during the camps, and I think it's something I really regret because I don't have their take on it. I don't have like their knowledge, and I can't pass down their stories to future generations. So I think my advice to everybody would be to take that time out of your busy lives and just take that time to, I guess, talk to the older generations and learn something about the past.
Day of Remembrance is important to Tomo No Kai because we're a Japanese American culture club. And as such, it's easy to find information on the Japanese culture, but not so easy to find out about Japanese American history. So, Day of Remembrance is remembering the most important event in Japanese American history. So it's important for us to educate everyone about
I think
it.
DOOR is important today because it reminds people that no matter where you're from or what racial group you're associated with, that everyone should be integrated into the society.
As a Japanese American, I feel that it's important to remember what our ancestors had to go through. DOOR is a day where we take time out of our busy lives to remember just what they had to do. But on the flip side, we don't really know what they had to do. I feel that when I talk to my grandparents who did have to go into the internment camps, I got a better perspective on just how life was, how tough it was. So thankfully, DOOR is here just for that.
Today, I think what Day of Remembrance and the internment camps means to me is as we are growing older and as time passes on, more knowledge and history gets farther away from us as time passes on. And with that, we still need to remember the things that happened in the past, because as we have kids and grandchildren, it's going to be harder for us to talk about the internment camps and what went on back during World War II because just of the time gap. And so if we don't learn the information now and get as much as we can from our grandparents and those who were interned, it's going to be harder to even like pass that on as time goes on, like hundreds of years from now. And if they don't remember like this information like for generations to come, then I think it's really sad and a really big part of Japanese American history will be lost.
Personally, I don't have a lot of knowledge about the internment camps because it wasn't something that my grandparents were comfortable talking about. But this makes this day more important to look back in history and pay our respects to those who were interned.
To me, Day of Remembrance is a time to remember the hardships that our ancestors went through just because of their ethnicity. It's crazy to think that they were completely uprooted from their homes and forced to live in these tiny barracks, sometimes with multiple families. All four of my grandparents were in the internment camp at Tule Lake, and sometimes I forget that they were involved in such a historical event in American history. But hearing their stories and experiences is important and really interesting, so that their experiences and their stories, they never really get forgotten. So I hope you guys learned something new today and that we can carry on this legacy that all of our ancestors built for us.